and I'll oftentimes ask them, hey, like, what do you guys plan to do with these photos? And it's just such a simple question. And then you see them sort of head tilt and start to think about, well, what do I want to do with these photos? And usually then the answer is, well, I think we're going to put some on our wedding website, and, maybe we'll put a couple at the reception table or something, and then I'm like, have you guys thought about doing a guest book?
Hey friends, welcome to the next episode of Success by Design with yours truly, Michael, and I am joined today by the amazing Marlies Hartmann. Marlies is a phenomenal wedding and destination photographer based out of Santa Monica, California, and her work is breathtaking. Taking that lifestyle approach, cinematic lighting, she leaves her clients with feeling with emotion over the actual images. And I absolutely love it. From one artist to another, I'm excited to go down this journey of storytelling and your approach to client experience and photography. So thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Michael. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So start telling us, like, how did you actually get started into this world of photography, this world of art? Like, what led you on this path?
So yeah, it definitely was a path. I was studying theater in New York. I went to NYU. Their art school is Tisch School of the Arts, and thought that my trajectory would be that of a theater performer. And long story short, ended up in California, ended up shooting for my food blog back when blogs were still a really cool thing, and started on my iPhone taking photos of recipes that I was creating, these vegan, gluten-free recipes, and I'm neither gluten-free or vegan, but was sort of diving deeper into that exploration. And then from there, got my first camera, and then I had a bunch of actor friends in LA who were asking if I could then take photos of them, and then started as a headshot photographer and sort of grew into that business and said, something's missing. I want to try shooting two people at the same time, and shot my first couple in January of 2016, and instantly knew that that was what I wanted to be doing, and sort of haven't looked back, and spent 2016 second shooting, assisting, photographing a few of my own weddings, as we all do when we're starting out. And then by 2017, I pretty much had shifted my business. I was full-time booked with weddings, and have been ever since. So
I love it. I love it. I felt like I read somewhere that your sister dressed you up when you were younger.
oh yes, yeah, so when I was 10 years old, we're going deep now. When I was 10 years old, my sister, who was a photographer as a hobbyist, she put me in her jacket and her hat and her scarf, and she put me out on our big balcony. We were living in middle of nowhere suburb of Chicago, and had this huge backyard and a big wraparound, deck with a screened-in porch. And so she put me out there and had her film camera and took just some black and white film photos of me. And unfortunately, just a few months later, we lost her to a motorcycle accident. And those photos were meaningful to me prior to her passing, just because it was one of the, as a 10-year-old, you're so insecure, and you're figuring out who you are. And I never growing up particularly felt beautiful, and in these photos she made me feel so beautiful, and they're some of my most valued photographs of me as a child. Not only because that was one of the last sort of gifts that she was able to give me, but because I truly felt that she saw me in a way that made me feel what she felt, which was that she saw my beauty, and then I was able to see it as a reflection of what she saw. So yeah, I mean, that's something that sort of always stuck with me, is that she had a love of photography before I ever even dreamed I would be, with a camera in my hand someday. So
I love that story because when you were talking about, your introduction to photography in school, and I was like, that emotional connection started somewhere. Like, with that couples, because in your work, you bring the beauty to your clients. Like they see themselves how your sister made you see yourself in every image. And that's not by accident.
I mean, to me it's funny because it's I always fall in love with my couples. Like I just on a wedding day, or I fall in love with their families too, because you're being welcomed into such an intimate space, and you're seeing the entire spectrum of emotion on a wedding day. But being able to sort of fall in love with your clients allows you to see sort of like, and I always tell my couples, like, I don't want to just photograph the two of you. Like, I want to photograph your connection. And I'm sure I'm not the first one to say, I like to think about the fact that people will see these photographs that don't exist yet. And the
Yeah.
perfect example is my daughter. So her dad and I aren't together. We call ourselves happily unmarried. And he lives about a mile down the road. And she doesn't really remember her parents together. So she doesn't remember,
Hmm.
she was so young when we separated that she doesn't really have memories of us together. And so for her to be able to see our wedding album, that's the love where she came from, right?
Hmm.
And so she can see how much joy, how much love, how much fun our families had together, right? And I'm so thankful that we have that. And I always try and take that same approach on the wedding day, is that people will see these photos, whether you have children or not as a couple, people will be looking at your photos, no doubt, that don't exist yet. And
Yeah.
so by taking that approach, you're able to sort of take things to a higher level, and remind your couples that you are sort of their private historian,
Hmm.
and you're there to create their first family heirloom. And I always say we're not curing cancer. I think it was Steve Martin who said this as an actor. I'm not curing cancer, but maybe at night when the somebody who comes home and watches him and he can make them laugh, and that person's the one who will cure cancer. So maybe he can bring light and life and joy to the person who will make these huge life changes. And I like to think, maybe wedding photographers, anyone in the wedding industry, like it's a luxury art form. We're being commissioned artists in the modern world, right? uh, we might not be making these great life changes or world peace or all of those things, but we're able to document the legacy of the people who might be doing those things. So,
I love it. I feel like you just gave us a whole seminar on the importance of discovering your passion,
oh
right?
yeah. Well,
Because
and I think,
it's
yeah, it's so easy. Sorry to cut you off. It's so easy to get lost in the flowers and
hmm.
the napkins and these little details that are, I know that they're important because you as a family are making these decisions, or you as a couple are spending so much time and energy and money on those things.
Hmm.
But I always want to sort of bring it back to what the bigger picture is.
Yeah.
Because I think that will also, I want my couples to want those photos that will reflect the bigger
Hmm.
picture. So,
Yeah, I just delivered an 80-page album to one of my couples, and I like to do behind the scenes of their reactions. And what I did not expect is for them to get choked up at looking at people from their bridal party who are no longer with them. Like literally, like they couldn't speak, but they were so grateful that they're there, that it's just like they are preserved in this space forever. And when you talk about those photos that haven't even been taken yet and creating those connections, I was like, people, like I feel that as a photographer, and I know you feel that as a photographer when you deliver your products to your clients, and when you're talking about falling in love with your clients. I'm like, these are the topics that I feel like more people should talk about. Yes, lighting, yes, gear, but where's that passion? Where's that falling in love for our clients? Because that's where the client experience comes from, right?
right, but okay, but hold on, time out. I mean, let's keep it real. Like, some of our clients are harder to love than others, right?
Yes.
So keeping it real. I mean, I would say on the day, it's really easy to fall in love with your couples, and I'm very lucky that I have so many couples that are just absolutely amazing. I know not everyone can speak for that, but even in keeping it real, like some couples are a little harder to love than others. But it is about creating something, and like people oftentimes forget that we are in a service industry,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
client experience is essentially about serving your couples. And something that I learned this year was that not every couple is the right fit for me, and I've had to let some couples know that I'm just not going to be a good fit for their day, and
Yeah.
that's me trying to mitigate on the front end so that I don't have those challenges on the back end of not being a good fit for someone, and then trying to make what I do fit with what their needs are, what they want. And I mean, it's always a we're always learning, and we're always growing, and we're always trying to figure things out, especially as entrepreneurs and business owners. But that's sort of the next step, is in the client experience. It's figuring out who is your client that you can best serve, because once you have that client as someone you are serving, you have to do the best job you can to serve them, and to create that client experience for them that they deserve.
I love it. I love it. So on this road that we talk about, like you having to go through that space of telling clients that I'm not the best person for you. I would love for you to tell us about a memorable or challenging session or wedding that you've had to overcome it and how you've gotten through it.
Challenging session or wedding. I mean, this might be a little off topic. I mean, it's more of a funny story. Can we go in that direction?
Let's do it.
So, this was just a couple weddings ago. I had just a tiny touch of food poisoning from something I had eaten the night before. And I woke up, and when you're a wedding photographer, you've got to show up under a lot of
Yeah.
challenging conditions, regardless of how you feel. And I remembered that my sister had given me a nausea pill, like a prescription nausea pill, that she was like, "Hey, if you ever need this, you put it under your tongue, and it can help with car sickness or seasickness or just any sort of nausea that or food issues." So I woke up that morning, and I went into my backpack, and I find this little capsule pill thing in the foil, and I open it, and I realize half of it's been already taken, and I thought, gosh, I don't remember taking half of a nausea pill, but okay. So I take it, and I put it under my tongue, like she says, and it dissolves instantly, and it tastes a little minty, and I'm thinking, I don't remember, like, this seems strange, something seems off. And I turn it over, and granted, this is like an hour before I'm supposed to go shoot this wedding. I had taken a sleeping pill, an Ambien, that I guess she had also given me, uh, that I forgot that she had given me. I know, guys, don't take medicines the morning of a wedding, uh, is the lesson to be learned. So I'm, of course, freaking out because I've never taken an Ambien and tried to stay awake before.
Hmm.
And so I'm calling my second shooter, and I'm like, what cures Ambien? What do I do? And I'm Googling online, and, my assistant's like, well, I have Adderall if you need that. And I'm like, I don't want to be mixing drugs. And I'm trying to like eat just to fill up my stomach. And I had no idea how I was like, can I even drive to the wedding? And everyone's like, just calm down, see how you feel. Luckily, you only took a half, you didn't take a whole.
Yeah.
And so I made it to the wedding, and I definitely felt a little bit tingly, I guess you would
Hmm.
say,
Hmm.
for those first couple of hours, while I was thankfully just shooting some candids of the bridesmaids and getting all their details
Hmm.
photographed. But I made it through. It was one of the most unexpected things that I've done before a wedding. But
Gotcha.
it was funny how quickly my stomach felt better. That was the surprising part. I
I was just
wasn't
about to say, what happened to the nausea?
I know, right? It was like somehow it also just fixed the nausea. I think my adrenaline just kicked up so high
Hmm.
that I was able to overcome the sleeping pill. And
Yeah.
I guess it also just made me not think about not feeling well, otherwise.
That is hilarious. Thank you for sharing.
I
So I want to transition into, when we talk about client experience, when we're talking about what you leave your clients with, How has Fundy helped you in your business?
Mm. Well, I mean, the obvious is the financial help, right? So, through offering prints and through offering albums, you're going to be helping your business financially. But I'm very lucky and privileged that I started in the industry after, what so many photographers had to go through, where they were manually creating album designs for their couples. So I feel a little bit spoiled in that sense. But just this morning, I mean, I was able to create a parent book while I was, waiting for our call. And
Yeah.
it's something that it's so fast and so easy that just if, I always do the auto design. I figure out how many average photos per page I want to have. And then if I don't like a design, I can just click that shuffle button, which is probably my favorite little thing, or just where you can click into it and see all the different pre-created designs and you can
Mm-hmm.
change the constraints. So if I don't want it to make anything square crop or, things like that. So just the fact that I can so easily shift things around or make things happen. And then I was able to get that design off to the family. I mean, I'd already done the couple's album design, and they said, "Hey, we'd love to create a custom design for the parents too." So they sent me their selections, and I was able to make that for them. And so I would say I never had it as challenging as some people did when it came to album design, but for me, it's just always been seamless. And albums are something that I knew from the very beginning I wanted to integrate into my
Mm-hmm.
collection and really show my couples the value of having printed photographs and having an album. It's easy because I got an album when I got married, so I
Yeah.
can speak personally to seeing how like my daughter looks through our album and how that's one of the most like cherished possessions we have in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but so, I mean, my primary use of Fundy is through client albums. I also do a lot of guest sign-in books for my couples after we do
Okay.
the engagement shoot. So I'll be on an engagement session with my couples and I'll oftentimes ask them, "Hey, like, what do you guys plan to do with these photos?" And it's just such a simple question. And then you see them sort of head tilt and start to think about, well, what do I want to do with these photos? And usually then the answer is, well, I think we're going to put some on our wedding website and, maybe we'll put a couple at the reception table or something, and then I'm like, have you guys thought about doing a guest book? And they actually have, there's signing book templates
Mm-hmm.
also integrated into the Fundy software as well, which is really great to have.
I love it. And especially when you talk about like educating clients. So many photographers talk about educating clients about, just inundating them with this is why you have to do this. This is why you need print. This is why you need albums. And you're like, let me just ask them a question. Like, what are your intentions? It's so simple yet so powerful, and it just changes their whole perspective without all of the salesman, type of language.
Yeah, sales is not something I've ever felt. Well, I guess so there's sales in that very traditional like used car salesman. Nothing against used car salesmen, like slay. But I'm saying like in that like how we imagine that sort of cheesy let me sell to you with
Mm-hmm.
a pinky ring and ha cha cha
Yeah.
versus like today where I think sales psychology has changed and evolved so much. But it's still something that I've always struggled with because I have that stigma attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I shifted my mindset of I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to just present you with options that I'm personally passionate about.
Yeah.
And I think that if you go into it with, let me share with you things that have enhanced my life through having albums, through having prints. Like, I mean, I have so many prints in my home. I just had a planner before one of our weddings. She texted me this morning and said, the morning of the wedding, and said, "I have a strange request, but do you have any 8 by 10 frames that you can bring today to the for the wedding?" And this is a very like well-respected planner, and it was a pretty big wedding. And she said, "I think the couple was somebody was supposed to bring these frames, and they somehow got forgotten." And I'm like, let me just check around the house. I know I have enough printed photographs in the home that I must have a couple of 8 by 10
Hmm.
frames. So of course
Hmm.
I'm taking my photos out and, wrapping up the frames to bring, and I was able to have them there for the wedding day. But I think that when you can speak personally to the products that you're selling, you're no longer trying to push something artificially. You're actually not, you're not even selling it. You're just sharing, this is my experience and this is why this has made my life better, or this is why this has brought me joy.
Hmm. Hmm.
And let's see if we can find a way that we can also preserve your memories or bring you joy, or integrate this with you in a way.
This is absolutely amazing. I feel like this is like IPS 101, right? Don't try to sell, but make it personal, make it intimate. And these are the reasons why the prints on your wall and the albums you have are important to you, and why you want your couples to have it and what that looks like. Because I think, like you said, when you paint that picture of what is done in your life and your children, and the legacies that you want to live, other people, like, that light bulb goes off just by sharing that little bit of information of how it impacted your life and your family's life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's just a matter of, I don't even like calling it IPS, because I think, again, like, that's like the new age generation of, like, now
Yeah.
everybody's stigmaing IPS. But I mean, essentially what you are doing is selling to your client, right? So however whatever language you want to use to give that terminology. But for me, it really just comes down to, I'm not here to sell. If you want this, great. Like,
Hmm.
if you don't want it, great. I'm here to serve you. How can I
Yes.
serve you? And to me, serving my couples is having those options for them, so that I'm giving them this sort of like complete holistic experience of, I'm not just here to show up and shoot your wedding. I'm
Hmm.
here to make sure that we are creating this heirloom or this legacy for you to have for the next generation or generations.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I would love for you to share us your either most memorable or your most profitable sell, and walk us through that process of what that client experience was like.
Oh goodness. Well, so things that I've noticed is there's some couples who automatically have they have an idea that they know that they want a lot of print product on the back end, and then there's those couples that you don't know what they're gonna want, and then they surprise you when you're discussing it. I think it's also Vanessa Joy, just to throw in a fun little nugget, shares about how you can send your couples print packages or
Hmm.
album packages after the wedding day, so that they have that option once they start thinking about those prints, to do something like that. So that's something that I'm trying to integrate more into my post-wedding workflow. But usually, most of my couples, I would say 95% of my couples already have an album included in their collection. So, uh, one particular couple, I think they didn't have, I don't think they had anything. And so I simply offered and said, have you thought about printing your photographs? Have you thought about getting an album? And they ended up coming over to my home, and I was able to show them some of the albums that I have as samples, or some of the prints that I had in my home. And I honestly didn't know what to expect.
Hmm.
They ended up getting an accordion album. So if you've ever seen those, they're so cute. They're these little, like, I want to say like 3 inch by 3 inch
Yeah.
square mini albums that are also magnets.
Hmm.
And when you open them, they sort of accordion into, I want to, maybe 9 images on each side.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So they ended up wanting to gift that to every single one of their guests that came to the wedding.
Wow.
So, which I want to say was maybe 150 people, between 150 and 200, I would say. Uh,
Wow.
and so we ended up creating a mini album for all of their guests. It was all duplicate. So it was one design, but then we were able to create one of those for everybody. And then they also ended up getting, I want to say, four of my most luxury albums, because there was some step parents in there, and so they got it for
Hmm.
themselves, and then the parents And then they also just ended up getting prints for their home.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
since I've been able to photograph uh, their first pregnancy and then their first baby and their second pregnancy, so I've sort of stayed a part of the family and grown with them. And I've been able to be in their home and seen how they display their art and have those things and what it really means to them. Um, and so for me, I think having had that experience and then being able to see that they're truly valuing what you've given them and the gift that you've brought them and giving them that full service experience because it's a
Yeah.
lot of emails. I mean, they had me do their thank you cards. I had to get a list from them of every single guest, name and address and put that through my album company so that we could get all of the thank you cards, with everybody's return address or everybody's
Mm-hmm.
address and the couple's return address, and then make sure we could fit the little mini albums and everything. So I mean, it's a lot of work, but when you see, I mean, it financially pays off and then it emotionally pays off
Mm-hmm.
because thankfully I was able to see sort of what that meant to them and
Yeah.
get that feedback from them as a couple. So
That's absolutely beautiful. And I think it full circles goes back to what you were saying, like our job is to service our clients. So, you listening to their pain points and their wants and their needs and saying, I'm going to take care of you. Like, trust me and let me take care of you. And you literally had done everything print wise for them that they don't have to lift a finger. That's absolutely amazing.
yeah, it's just having that option of look, like I can take this as far as you guys want. Like you need
Mm-hmm.
to let me know what it is that you want at the end of the day and then yeah, listening. I mean, I guess the pain point for them was they didn't have the time and they didn't want to go through the effort. And so they'd rather have somebody else do it. And
Yeah.
so I was able to provide that service for them at the time and they were incredibly thankful for it. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the end of the day, there was no sales involved in that. It was simply, how can I service you and what can we
Yeah.
do for you? Like, how can I make this a full service experience for you guys to have exactly what it was that you needed, which was to thank your guests and have your memories in your home. So,
Absolutely beautiful. And you know what? And you had mentioned that, they did not want to take the time or have the time to do it. And instead of going outside, instead of like they could have went anywhere. And you could have also just said, no, I don't do this. But that mutual connection and saying, you know what? Like that trust was there.
right.
And I feel like the key thing, and people who are listening to this, is building that trust with your clients that, they believe that you are the best person to take care of them. Even if you give them outside recommendations, like when you talk about falling in love with your wedding clients, I feel like that's what it looks like, right?
Well, I think it's the other side of that trust, right? So they have to trust you and you have to trust them. And it's so funny. I had one bride, she was Australian. And on the wedding day, I was like, guys, can we go try, doing this shot really quick? I don't know, it might not work, but let's go do it. And she's like, I told everyone that all day in my horrible Australian accent, she said, in Marlies, we trust. And I said, absolutely, that was the best thing anyone could have said because then I know I have that trust from them,
Hmm.
right? And then I'm able to do my best job for them on the day. And sometimes that's stealing them away to take a few extra photos. And sometimes it's, guys, go dance, party, have fun, and I'm gonna shoot that, right?
Beautiful, beautiful. So I know that Fundy has just come out with a whole new software that just expedites your entire workflow when it comes to social media, the social design app. And so I know you looked at it. I would love to hear like how you plan on incorporating that in your own social media to increase your workflow and increase your revenue at the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows. Well, for me personally, social media is one of my biggest lead sources, and so staying relevant and staying active on social media is super important. And I found oftentimes if I'm not able to be posting in the actual feed, just staying even on stories is really helpful. And so for me, the social design app, being able to create compelling and beautiful stories, or post themselves, is just a great way to keep top of mind of clients who are potential clients who are following you that you might not even know are following you. Or sometimes they're not even following you, they're just checking on you once in a while, and they want to see what have you been doing, what have you been creating. And just by staying relevant and staying top of mind, when they finally are ready to reach out to someone, they're going to think of you versus the other person who's doing it. So for me, just
Hmm.
having that ease of being able to quickly and efficiently create something that I can maybe not even post right away, but just save and post later, that looks beautiful and is consistent with my brand, is super important.
I love it. So I have two more questions before we jump into my favorite segment, which is rapid fire.
Okay.
So the last two questions are, who has been your greatest influence or mentor in your photography journey, and what lessons have you learned from them?
Oh, goodness. I I've thought about this, and I could definitely go two directions. So one direction would obviously be my daughter. I am a single parent, and she has lived with me full time pretty much her entire life. And she's forever my favorite person to photograph, without a doubt. She's been like my little doll since she was little. And now that she's older, she's going to be 14 this summer. And having, having her as sort of this model for me.
Hmm.
And she
Hmm.
also comes and assists me at shoots a lot of times. And so she's sort of this Jiminy Cricket that will sit on my shoulder and say, Mom, have her tilt her head a little bit to the right. Or he needs to fix his hair because he has a tough, like little
Yeah.
whisperings. She's been so helpful to me, yeah, on that end, but just as an inspiration of watching her grow up and having spent so much time, just the two, like we are a family of two, and seeing the way that she sees the world, the way that she will stop and, as a 6-year-old would pick up a leaf from the sidewalk and put it back on a branch of the tree and say, go back to your family, like here you go, like
Oh.
I know, the empathy that she has, and the way that she'll notice little things that I think we as adults, we get so cluttered with so many, you know life things that we forget to just take those moments to stop and really appreciate those little things. And then finding that balance with her. I always say, like, you have to put in those 10,000 hours, and you have to be practicing your craft. And trust me, if I am in Yosemite or on vacation and there's this gorgeous sunset, like the first thing I want to do is start taking pictures of it, right? But then there's something really, really special about putting down your camera and sitting with her and actually just being present in that moment.
Yeah.
And there's lessons to be learned from not holding your camera and not taking those photographs in that moment that I think can be invaluable. More so than, just being with her is better than taking the photos sometimes. So,
I love it. I love just the whole story that you just shared. It's been absolutely amazing. This final question is, what skills or qualities do you think is essential for any photographer to be successful in
hmm.
this industry?
Yeah, I think it's so easy as photographers to want to constantly be improving our photography. And I think it's important that you do know how to be a photographer if you're going to be a photographer. However, I think the most valuable element of being a photographer is knowing business. And I always say, don't let your art get in the way of your business. And I think it's easy for us to want to be artists because that's primarily why we became photographers, is because we are
Hmm.
creatives and we are artists. But I think that without our business, we don't get a place to create our art, right? Or you can, but then you're doing it as a hobby and not as a profession. And so I think anything that you can do to work on the business side of your business is beyond invaluable, because it's giving us that place to create the art that we want to be creating.
That's perfect. Perfect. I love it. So we're going to jump into my favorite section, rapid fire. So these are going to be photography related questions, personal related questions.
Okay.
So buckle in. We're going to have some fun. All right. So the first one, what is the most interesting thing in your purse?
The most interesting thing in my purse. Ooh, I think I have like foreign money that I keep in my purse. That would
Okay.
probably be the most interesting thing that I have.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What is your favorite lens?
Gosh, my favorite lens. Well, my most used lens is the 2870 f2, which I think is one of the greatest lenses that Canon has ever created. Uh, but I have a soft spot in my heart for the 85 1.2.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the RF lens. It's from the DSLRs, and that just creates a bokeh like I've never seen on like the 85 1.2 and the Canon 5D Mark III is to me the most perfect portrait combination of any portrait combination photo like of any camera brand of any
Mm-hmm.
lenses ever created.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What is your favorite TV show to watch as a child?
Oh, Full House. Which, the irony is that I shot Uncle Jesse's wedding back in 2018. So, trust me, when I found out John Stamos was going to be a client of mine, I mean, Full House it raised me, that show.
Beautiful. What is the most interesting thing that you've ever eaten?
Okay. I want to make sure I say this correctly. Uh, it was the reproductive organ of a codfish.
Okay.
So, cod ballsack.
Okay, there we go. I was like, I'm gonna Google it, and I was like, trying to figure out what that looks like. Do you have a dream shoot location?
Italy.
Okay. What is your favorite thing to do on a rainy day?
Gosh, we had so many this year in California. Um, we have a wood burning fire, so probably light a fire and go nowhere.
Okay, beautiful. Just a few more. Least favorite part about running your business?
Least favorite part about running my business. Uh, Probably the endless hours on my computer staring at a screen.
What is the first thing you do when you walk into your office?
Well, my office is my home, and so I mean, the first thing I always do in the mornings, I drop my daughter at school, and then I get a cup of coffee, and then crack her open.
Okay, awesome. Two more. Describe your style in one word.
Oh my gosh, Michael, you're killing me. One word.
One word.
Legacy.
Beautiful. And final questions. If you can uninvent one thing, what would it be?
TikTok.
I love it. I love it. Well, you have been absolutely amazing, Marlies. I want to give you some time for you to just tell people where they can find you, how they can follow you, how they can work with you, and learn from you. The floor is yours.
Well, you can find me at on Instagram at Marlies Hartmann, Marlies Hartmann, Hartmann, two N's because my family is extra. And my website is mhartphoto.com. Uh, Learning from me, I do have a mentoring tab on my contact form on my website. I also have a group on Facebook for when I do my first workshop. And then there will be some speaking happening next year, things I can't quite talk about yet. And there's definite potential for a workshop coming up as well for next year. So the best way to learn about that is through my Facebook group. And I think that's pretty much it. Or if you're ever in California, if you're in Southern California, I love meeting up with people. And so, I mean, when we have time and it's not high wedding season, or I believe that sharing knowledge and sharing information is something that people should do openly. So
Hmm.
if people ever want to just shoot me a DM, if they have a question or if they're just interested in connecting, I think we've lost so much in-person connecting that I'm trying to do more face-to-face
Hmm.
connections this year and more face-to-face networking. I'll be attending a conference called Engage a couple times this year. And so I'm going to this gala tonight, actually, which is why I need to go get hair and makeup ready. And just the opportunities to see people and give a hug or a handshake, and those are to me the things that really mean the most. And I'm learning more and more through these in the post-COVID world that just being able to see people's faces and laugh together and enjoy time together is one of the best ways that we can celebrate being alive. So
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I want to thank you again for giving of your time. If you guys are watching this, please rewatch this again and again because Marlies just gave us a masterclass on finding your why, client experience, being a service provider and not just a photographer, and just overall, just how to better yourself as a person so that you can show up better in your industry as a photographer. I absolutely love it, Marlies. Thank you for your time again. And this is, again, Success by Design with Michael and Fundy. And I look forward to catching you guys later. Bye bye.